Hello. So in this video, I wanted to talk about how to lose body fat. I wanted to do this video because I think it's very important for everyone that I train, as well as people who might be interested in working with me, to for them to understand, for you to understand, what needs to be done in order to lose fat. So I have written down here on this slide two methods, which is basically the only two ways you can lose body fat naturally. And also, before we go into that, I wanted to clarify one very important thing. As a personal trainer, I spend pretty much all the time with my clients in a gym, training, lifting weights. So that's the focus of basically my job. But when it's about losing body fat, training is not really an important factor. So let's dive into why that is. So training is not the key to losing body fat, and I'll explain exactly the reasons. Good nutrition is almost entirely responsible for fat loss. Training is just an hour, a few days a week perhaps. Really, overall, it's a very small percentage of time. So what happens outside the rest of the time determines your energy intake and your energy outgoing. So training is very important though, because it gives you tone, muscle tone. It's basically a way so that when you lose all your body fat, you have a nice result underneath. So basically, if you were to lose a few kilos and you don't train, you might end up being a bit flat, a bit soft still. Whereas if you train, you will start seeing muscles coming through, tone, and just a harder physique. Having said that, it's also one of the healthiest things probably the healthiest thing you can do for your body. And I mean your complete body, from brain to bones, joints, organs, heart, circulation, everything. Just one of the best things. You can search this on Google. It's one of the best ways to keep your brain young. So it's not crossword puzzles, it's not reading endless books. It's about training physically. And this has been recently researched and discovered. So have a look. So why is training not good enough for us to lose body fat? And that's because if you look at this chart here, we have 100%. This is your energy that you burn every day. So 100% of this is the energy you've burnt yesterday, for example. And say that yesterday was a day that you trained as well. So we'll include training into this energy outgoing. The BMR, as you can see, is the biggest chunk, 70%. This is the energy that your body needs just to stay alive. No activity needed, simply sitting down or lying down. If you were to do absolutely nothing that day, you would still burn 70% of the energy you burn usually in a day. Then we move on to NEAT, N-E-A-T, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is basically energy you burn via living your life. So it's not exercise. It doesn't include training. It's simply energy that you need to go to work, to cook, to walk around and do your grocery shopping, all that stuff. So it's quite a big chunk, but it's still nothing compared to just the energy the body needs to be alive. Then TEF, that little 10%, it's a thermic effect of food. So when you digest food, it's kind of an energy requiring, process. So your body needs some energy to be able to digest the food. So that is a bigger chunk than most people realize. Especially if you eat quite a lot of protein in your meals, that will be higher than if you don't, because protein is harder to digest. So if you include a portion of protein with your meals, you will burn more calories effectively that day. Then the final bit is EAT at the top. That's training. So as you can see, 5%, whether you train or you don't train, there's a 5% difference, more or less. This is a large generalization, but the difference is very tiny. So training is not for fat loss. You can move, you should train, but this is for you to be healthy, to have a well-functioning body. Yes, so let's move on to the two ways you can lose body fat. The first way is tracking your calories. This is very effective every client I have trained who has done it has been somewhat successful or very successful, meaning they have learned about the food they were eating. They realized, hey, I am eating too much, and they reduced where they could, and suddenly they were eating for fat loss. It's very clear. There is no doubt it's going to work. Every day is a day closer to your goal, but it is time consuming, at least at first. So not everybody wants to do it. Having said that, nowadays we have plenty of apps that help you to do that. The most famous one, MyFitnessPal, is the one that most people use. You scan the barcode of whatever food you've bought. You'll be amazed. Pretty much all of them are on this app. And with a kitchen scale, so you must have a kitchen scale. You weigh it, you input the amount you've put on your plate or in the pan, and automatically this app will calculate your calories. And the app will also help you to find your basal metabolic rate, or basically your TDEE, the energy you need for that day, and it will make the calculation of -2 to 500 calories each day, and then that will result in fat loss. So I could do these calculations for you, but really these apps, they do it already for you. And if you don't want to use the app, you just want to go and calculate the things yourself, you can find your energy requirements for fat loss on Google. Just Google calories, daily calories intake for fat loss, calorie calculator, and you will find plenty of calculators. And some of them will say different numbers, but it doesn't matter. More or less, you want to be in the ballpark of that number. It's very difficult to be extremely precise with calories. Then, when you do this, I suggest you do 6 days on 7, that deficit of between 2 to 500 calories daily. So basically, it's 2 to 500 calories less than what your maintenance is, just to be clear. On 1 day a week, I suggest you eat for maintenance, if not a little bit more. So that would mean just add a few hundred calories to your meals the whole day, just because it resets your hormone levels, your stress levels, and your body doesn't freeze up. So if there's too much continuous fat loss or caloric deficit, the body tends to slow down processes, the metabolism gets quieter, and then you basically have slower results. So I always found very useful, and many others as well, to have at least a cheat day, as it's called, or even one big cheat meal where you just eat whatever you like. It's also a mind break, a mental break from being too strict, basically. So remember, this is just for fat loss. It's not maintenance. This is a short period of time where you want to eat a little bit less than usual. Now, if you don't want to track calories, what is your other option? And that is to choose the right food groups and in the right quantities. So, starting with how is food divided? We've got protein-based foods, carbohydrates, fats. That's basically it. There's 3 types of food. Carbs, they branch into fibrous carbs and starchy carbs. Now that is where we're going to be finding our fat loss. If you look at the graph here, the pie chart, protein is extremely important. Like I said in the other slide, the thermic effect of food means that, first of all, you will burn more calories by simply digesting your meals if you have enough protein in them. And also, it will make you feel fuller. There's a fullness factor, which is extremely useful because it makes you basically less hungry. And also, it protects and builds muscle tissue. So when you're training, if you don't eat enough protein, the muscle simply isn't growing enough. Give it enough protein, you're good to go. It doesn't have to be massive amounts. Remember, just about a generous third. Then, a 40% of your meal should be vegetables or fruit. But I would say focus mainly on vegetables. If you don't want to eat vegetables for breakfast, for example, do replace it with some fruit, or you don't have to necessarily eat vegetables for breakfast, but something that is fibrous. So you could have, for example, oats or whole grain carbs, starches, which I will get to right now. But for lunch, for dinner, make sure you have at least a big third of it, a large third of it, in vegetables. They are very low calorie, and they fill you up. They make the plate look much fuller, and believe me, you will feel much better. They have so many vitamins and minerals, you will feel great. They also help you to digest well and to go regularly to the toilet. Then, starches. These are potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, so everything that comes from basically grains of all types. So it's a type of carbohydrate that is way more caloric. So, well, a little more caloric than the vegetables. But we need them because our brain, for example, runs entirely on carbs. But we need them in smaller quantities because they provide effectively the energy, the fuel for your body to function. So if we give it a little less fuel, not only is it less calories, but it will want to get the fuel from other sources. Where is it going to get the fuel from? Your fat, the one you have on your body, more or less. That's a very simple explanation of these processes. But so only 20%, 1/5 of your meal should be that. Meaning if you're having a sandwich, the bread should be only 1/5 of that sandwich. So it's really not a very good ratio because a sandwich is usually like half of it is bread at least. And if you're having a plate of like pasta, you have to tweak it. Add more protein, add more veggies to it, and the pasta in very little amounts. You can have it, and in fact you should, but tweaking these quantities is everything. Then fats includes, oil, cheeses, butters, very small amounts. They're extremely caloric, but they're very healthy, but they're too caloric. That's what I wanted to say. They're extremely healthy. Olive oil, as you know, extra virgin, is full of omega-3s. Cheeses, they're actually pretty good for you. They're not bad. Nuts also are included in these foods. You want to reduce them to a very small amount. So let's go into the, describing more what these food groups are. Proteins, fibrous carbs are the food groups that will make the biggest part of your meals. So we're talking about meat, fish, seafood obviously, eggs, low-fat dairy products. So don't count cheese with it, but definitely low-fat yogurts are very good. And vegetables plus pulses. So pulses as well are very good. Just include them as fibrous carbs. Starches, so like pasta, bread, rice, potatoes, small quantities. Fats, oils, butters, nuts, seeds, cheese, in even smaller quantities. So just a little bit of your meal is fats. Because you're not counting calories, it might take some time before you see changes. And if you don't see changes in 2 weeks, it's probably because you're eating a little too much. So simply reduce starches and or fats, not protein, neither vegetables, because you need those and they are not going to make you fat. Starches and fats, take them down a little bit. And if you don't see changes again, just try to move a little bit more. But really focus on those two and you should see pretty good weight loss. Most importantly, be consistent. So remember, if you eat more on a day and then again another day, that is going to slow you down a little bit. So have your expectations, have realistic expectations. The better you can be with your consistency, the quicker you will see the results. Finally, the last slide is avoid highly processed foods. Basically, everything that is pre-made, pre-packaged, already made foods. They are very caloric, first of all, and they are generally unhealthy. They contain emulsifiers, they contain plenty of chemicals, colors, flavorings, even if it's natural. And this has been proven to mess up with the communication from your body to your brain to tell you that you're full or that you're hungry. So there's basically you're not sure, am I hungry or am I full? There's no good communication. And over the long term, it's basically leading, scientifically speaking, to fat loss. One way or another, if you eat highly processed foods, even just a little bit, you will very likely gain fat. That's just the way it is. Then, alcohol, which is a very big topic, I have to recommend that you try to reduce it. You don't have to necessarily remove it if you don't want to, although that would be the best thing you can do. But reducing it will do wonders to accelerating your fat loss. all the clients that I have trained who have lost a significant amount of weight, they had to be careful about alcohol. They had to reduce it. It's extremely important. Alcohol has no nutrients and it just makes you fat. That's really it. And I love to have a drink here and there once in a while, but really, I can immediately sense my body reacting differently to when I include alcohol regularly into my diet or not. So I suggest once or twice a week tops, 1 or 2 glasses, leave it at that, because you will see, you will sleep better, you will feel better, and your fat will simply melt off your body. Then try not to eat out often, because eating out is, obviously it's very good, but there's a reason why it's so good, is because they put so much fat, carbs, delicious stuff to make it really good, so that you come back and eat there again. But it is extremely caloric. The same plate you would eat in a restaurant, if you had made it at home, it would probably be half the calories. And this is very important, because if you eat out often, it's simply not going to work. Honestly, if you eat out very often, a few times a week, you're not going to see much fat loss. Very, very difficult. And then finally, be patient. Results will come. If they don't come within 2 or 3 weeks, don't despair. You simply have to fix little things and then they will come. Also, remember, fat loss is not a linear process. It's a process that goes up and down. The bigger picture is what matters. So over a month and a half, how much weight have you lost? If it's not happening, you have to look at what you're doing and try to go a little bit harder. Meaning, your calories, are you counting correctly? Are you weighing correctly? Make sure everything is fine. And then finally, is the number of calories I'm eating correct? And if you're just selecting the food groups, reduce starches or fats, and you will lose weight, believe me. Finally, weigh yourself or measure yourself a couple of times a week, because we have water retention. So if you weigh yourself only once a week, you might be weighing yourself on a day where you have retained a lot of water because you had more carbs the night before, or who knows, there's many reasons. And then the week after, maybe you haven't, and then you did again. So if you do it twice a week, you'll have more a more realistic trend. And that's it. So I hope this helped you out, and reach out to me if you have any questions about this. Thank you very much.